Hey guys, it's Miss K. Happy Tuesday. I hope you're doing well. We're going to start by going over the volume questions from last week. So I said find the volume of this figure, write out expressions that you use to find the volume. So I'm going to start with the big box on the bottom. We know the length is 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I'm going to write a 5. The width is 2. 1, 2. And the height is 2, 1, 2. So if I'm writing an expression for the volume of this box on the bottom, the longer one, I'm doing 5 times 2 times 2. 5 times 2 is 10. 10 times 2 is 20. So the volume of the box on the bottom is 20 units cubed. And then if I want to find the volume of the box on the top, there's two ways you could do it. You could clearly see it's just 4 cubes and I could count it, or I could do that the length is 1, the width is 2, and the height is 2. So if I labeled that 1 by 2 by 2, or 1 times 2 times 2, which is 4 units cubed. If I add it up, the total volume is 24 units cubed. So everyone can see that it's kind of sloppy. 24 units cubed. All right, let's look at the second problem. Second one is a little bit trickier because I have a big box and then I have a little box. We could start with the big box. We know that the length is 15, the width is 4, and the height is 6. So I can do 15 times 4 times 6. And remember, we can multiply in any order. So if I do 15 times 4, get 5 times 4 is 20, 4 times 1 is 4, plus 2 is 6, which gives me 60. Now I'm doing 60 times 6. 6 times 6 is 36. I'm adding a 0. I get 360 inches cubed for the box on the bottom. Now, the box on the top, we see we have a length of 7. We have a height of 3. And we need to know the width. So let's look at what we can figure out. If this width here is 4, we know the top of the rectangle is also going to be 4. And if this side of the box is 4, then this side is also going to be 4. Okay, so my top expression is 7 times 4 times 3. Okay, so let's try it. 7 times 4 is 28. Now I'm doing 28 times 3. 8 times 3 is 24. 3 times 2 is 6. Plus 2 is 8. 84 inches cubed. And now I'm going to add it up. 360 plus 84, 8 plus 6 is 14, plus 1 is 4, 444 inches cubed for both boxes. Again, the bottom one, the length was 15, the width was 4, the height was 6. The top one, we know the height of the box is 3. The length is 7. We don't know the width, but we know this is 4 here, which means this top is 4 here and this top is 4 here. Okay? All right. Today we're going to talk about measuring distance. How long is something? How far do you go when you're traveling? And there's 2 systems of measurement. We have the customary system, which we use here in the United States. And then there's the metric system, units of measurement that you use in science and that all the other countries around the world pretty much use. So we're going to talk about some units of measurement that we use for the customary system. We have an inch. 1 inch is the length from the tip of your thumb to your first knuckle. We have a foot, which is like the length of a ruler, which is also the length of a football. We have 1 yard, which is the length of a baseball bat. And we have 1 mile, which is about 8 city blocks when you walk. Okay? These are the units of measure for distance in the customary system. All right, so when we talk about units of measure for distance in the customary system, here's an example of 1 inch. You're used to this. You see it on the ruler. Now, 12 of these inches make up the size of 1 foot, which I said is approximately the size of a football. This is 1 foot, the entire size of the ruler. Now, if I take this 1 foot and lay it out 3 times, 1, 2, 3. This is 3 feet, 36 inches, which is the same as 1 yard, the length of a baseball bat. Now, if I want to talk about the biggest unit of measurement for distance in the customary system, I'm talking about a mile. A mile is 5,280 feet. That would be 5,280 rulers. I'm not going to lay that out here, but that's why miles are used to measure longer distance. How far did one travel when they were in a car or when they were running? All right, so now that you see what inches, feet, yards look like, I'm going to put them in order from smallest to biggest and biggest to smallest. So first, if I'm sorting the units of measure for distance in the customary system from smallest to biggest, it goes inches, feet, yards, miles. This means it's going to take a lot more inches to measure something because inches are small. If I'm measuring something in miles, they cover a larger distance, so you need fewer of them. That being said, it doesn't make sense to measure your pencil in miles because your pencil is way too small. If I'm ordering them from biggest to smallest, it goes miles, yards, feet, inches. Again, miles, we use that to measure really long distances, like traveling from a place to a place. Yards and feet are sometimes both used for the same thing, and inches are used for things that are smaller. So, here's your task right now. I want you to tell me what is the correct unit of measure to measure all of these things. And it's possible that some of them may have more than one possible unit of measure. So go ahead and pause and write down the unit of measure that would be appropriate to measure these particular things. All right, let's see what we came up with. For the length of the Colorado River, I think depending on how long it is, you usually would say a river is this many feet long, or if it's a really long river, you would measure it in miles. The length of a boat, I would say you could measure the length of a boat in feet or yards. The height of a tree, if you think about when you measure a tree, most people measure a tree in feet. You could do it in yards. I think feet is more popular. The length of a bracelet that fits around your wrist, that would be measured in inches. The length of a bus route. A bus route is measured in miles. Think about how far you're traveling. The length of a car, measure that in feet. The height of your lunchbox or your lunch bag, I would measure that in inches. The length of a football field, I would measure that in yards. The length of a cross-country race, it depends on the race. Some races are measured in feet or miles. The length of materials for curtains, you could measure that in feet or yards. The depth or how deep a swimming pool is, I would measure that in feet. And the width of a butterfly, I would measure that in inches. Now, here are some examples that I'm going to read and I'm going to give you a chance to try them. Brandon wanted to find the length of his eyeglass case. Which unit of measure is most reasonable for this task? Inch, foot, yard, or mile? If I'm looking to see how long the face of a watch is it 2 yards, 2 inches, 2 centimeters, or 2 feet? Remember, we're just doing the customary system, so we're thinking about things we've talked about. How long is this pie pan? Is it 12 gallons, 12 feet, 12 inches, 12 ounces? How tall is this chair? 3 inches, 3 feet, 3 meters, 3 miles. I'll give you a second and then we'll go over it. All right, which unit of measure is most appropriate for the eyeglass case? I would say inches. An eyeglass case is not that long. How long do we think the face of the watch is? I would say it's 2 inches long. How long is the length of the pie pan? Probably about 12 inches or 1 foot. How tall is the office chair? Not 3 miles, that's way too big. 3 inches would be too small, so I'm gonna go with 3 feet. Same thing. Which unit of measure could best measure the length of your finger? Inches, feet, miles, or ounces? Which unit of measure would best determine the distance to the moon? Inches, miles, feet, or pounds? Which is the best unit of measurement to use in measuring the length of a car key? Feet, inches, yards, or miles? Give you a second to pause. Which unit of measure could best measure the length of your finger? I would say inches. Which unit of measure would best determine the distance to the moon? Well, the moon is pretty far. I would say miles. Which is the best unit of measurement to use in measuring the length of a car key? I would say inches. So what are some reflections that we learned from today? There are 2 systems of measurement that exist in the world: the customary system used in the United States and the metric system used throughout the rest of the world and in science. Small distances or lengths are usually measured in inches. Large distances, like how far you traveled in a car, are usually measured in miles. The smaller unit of distance you use, the more of that unit you will need to measure something. Think, it's going to take a lot more inches to measure something than it would feet or yards. The larger unit of distance you use, the less of that unit you will need to measure something. So if you're measuring something in miles, you need much fewer miles to measure the distance in a neighborhood than you would for feet. Here's the follow-up question. For your follow-up question, please walk around your house or outside and come up with items you would measure using inches, feet, yards, and miles. Please explain why you would use those measurements. Feel free to take pictures of the items as well and send them to me. Questions. If you have any questions about what I talked about in the video, please let me know by emailing me your responses or messaging me on Dojo. Oh, and one last thing. what did I get for my birthday in those boxes? The long box was a yoga mat, and the shorter box was a pair of shoes. Have a great rest of the week. I look forward to talking with you on Thursday. Bye, guys.